The Long Walk. The Long Walk. This is Stephen King.
Richard Bachman.
Richard Bachman, yeah. So I was about to say, this was not my first Stephen King book, but this was my first Richard Bachman book. So I think I think this is going to be an interesting episode because I didn't hate the book, but I think I have a different opinion of it than you. So I can't wait to talk about it. But why did you choose The Long Walk? Why did you think this would be, for one, a good Richard Bachman book for me? But why did you pick this as a good review for the show?
I mean, I would say like there's a quote that Stephen King uses every now and then that like sometimes a story is just a story and there's not really anything behind it, kind of thing. This is one of the few stories where I think there was meaning behind it of his.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
So
yeah,
I like that part of it. This isn't just a story. I think this is kind of King view of people and like what people can be. And I just like the story. I like the characters. I like the everything's not always finishes and, wraps up and all nice, neat and with a bow and everyone turns happy. And, this is very gritty, a very bleak ending and bleak just all the way through.
Yeah.
It's just, I like the, just kind of the plot as far as like, how did they get to this point? He never explains it, how they got to this point, why they're doing this, like, other than, for the prize, but like, how did society get to this point? It kind of leaves it open for your like own interpretation of it.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't explain it doesn't. I realize that that's a feature, not a bug, but that's one of the things that kind of I overall like the book, so I don't want to sound negative right off the bat, but the one thing I was going to point out that I didn't really like that much about the book was that they didn't explain those things. But I realized that was intentional. Like I don't think it was bad writing. I kept thinking the entire time I was reading it, is like, why are these people doing?
Find out something?
Yeah, I kept thinking something was gonna. I kept thinking I was gonna find out why these people were doing this. And you do get some like little bit of background story about like, there was the one guy that was walking because he had just recently got married and he wanted to have a kid, and there was, you eventually find out why Garrity's walking. You find out why the antagonist character, his name starts with an S, Stebbins. You kind of find out a little bit about his background, and why he's walking, but for the most part, you don't really learn about like why society as a whole is okay with this program, and like and what
it's been going on for a while. When you get to this story, it's
it's ingrained in the culture. Yeah, it's
I'm figuring at least 20, 25 years or something around in that nature that they've been doing this, because they talk about like Garrity talks about there was I think a winner from Maine, and like there was like streets named after him and things like that. But it made it sound like that guy was either dead or long, gone or old. So this isn't like the third or fourth one. Like,
we should say we're going to talk about the whole book, and we're going to say we're not going to avoid spoilers. So hopefully you've read the book, but
if not, read it.
Yeah, if not, read it. So I think that I'm glad I read it, because I know that it's important to sort of the Stephen King lore, and like I am a fan of his. I think he's a really great writer. I've liked the books that you've introduced me to. So I'm glad I read it. I recognize, like, I watched some reviews going into the podcast, and every review I saw, there was one reviewer, this lady read it. I don't normally watch her videos, so I didn't write down the name, but she had a kind of a similar opinion to me, where it was like she thought it was a good book, but it's not necessarily it's not a book that I think. I don't know. It's hard to describe it. I can't say it's bad, but I just don't feel like it's really the type of book that like I'm glad I read it once. I don't think I'd ever choose to read it again. How many times have you read this book?
Oh, I don't know. Probably maybe 3-4 times.
Yeah. You're a rereader.
I am.
Yeah, but I like that. That's good though.
But I'm also someone who reads something and then 2 weeks later can't remember anything about it, and then I'll read it again like a year later, and it's like I read it brand new.
I do that with with movies. I'll love a movie enough to buy it, but then I'll never feel like watching it again because I've already seen it. You know,
right? But now as far as like the outline, I guess, of the story is it's 100 teenagers that are chosen from a lottery to be able to compete in a long walk, which starts in Maine. You walk as far as the last person standing. You have to maintain 4 miles an hour or more.
But it's a lottery, but they can volunteer. It's still voluntary. They can choose not to do it.
They can choose not to. I think they set up into like the last little bit.
Yeah.
And then there's essentially, if you win, you get whatever your heart desires, and plus, I think, money or something. But you get 3 warnings every, 2 hours?
Yeah, it resets every 2 hours, and you have so many. I think you have like so many seconds before you
got 30 seconds. Again. Yeah, you have 30 seconds between each warning.
Yeah.
And then once you hit that 2 hour mark or whatever, then it resets and then you can start over. And they start somewhere up in north in Maine, and then they just walk. And
it is a long walk.
It is a long walk, and
at a 4 mile pace, they get a warning if they drop below 4 miles.
You get a warning, and then obviously, if you expend your last warning, there's soldiers that follow the whole group. Ticket. Yeah. You get a ticket, which is being shot and killed. And if at the first part they're walking and there's not really, it's just them. But then once they get into it and start getting to the first big cities of Maine, you realize that this is like a spectator sport. It's like the ending of the New York Marathon with like just throngs of people watching this, and they're all, they all want to see somebody get killed.
Yeah. They're like bringing their kids to come see the long walkers. Yeah. And there's like women that want to like try to like kiss and interact with the long walkers, and there's even one part where you're kind of thinking like they hint on the idea that maybe they even want to cause someone to get their third warning and get killed.
Right. Well, there's the part with I forgot which guy it was that. Yeah, 2 girls, and he runs up and like
on the hood of a car. Yeah,
he kind of like dry humps her a little bit, and he's like, he gets blue balls, and then like he can't keep going. He winds up getting killed like right down the road, and it's like, but like after that, they're like they get in their car and kind of like that's their like claim to fame. What's crazy is like, and the people even got to the point where like these guys can't stop for more than 30 seconds. So they'll, they basically have to drop their pants if they need to take a dump, and like people run out and collect their poop off the ground and like collect it and stuff. And it's like, just craziness.
It's so weird to me because, all right. So you talked about how you like this book because you thought that it had more meaning behind it than, some other stories that are just a story. So, what is your take on the long walk, and what are you referring to whenever you think that it has meaning behind it? I have a few theories too, but I want to hear yours.
Like, I think it, I think it's a, expose on what people, especially in a group mentality, are willing to put up with and do. I think that's, in a way, that's how King sees the mass, people.
Yeah,
Like if you were to like have no, like if this wasn't a spectator thing, or like on TV or like or whatever, how, because I mean I think they even said that some of it was televised, I
yeah,
believe,
yeah,
but
yeah, for sure.
um like if I don't think that it would shock people and they wouldn't go along with it, but like once you get that, like the group think going, the mob mentality going, like, that people change in
Hmm.
that kind of situation, and the bloodlust gets up, the
Yeah,
just the willingness to overlook just how awful this. I mean, like, these are kids, and there's some of these are like 13-year-old kids, like the one kid that was like crying out for his mommy, and
hmm,
like the mom's trying to get to him, and like, it's just like, it kind of hits home, like, what this really is. And
yeah,
there's that part, but on the Walker side, it's also, they talk a lot about why they're doing what they're doing, and like a lot of them come to realize that they have no idea why they agreed to do this, because everybody knows what happens and
yeah,
what the consequences are, but yet, you know 100 get chosen, but it seems like, thousands of people put their names in this lottery, because I mean it encompasses the whole of the United States. And there's waiting lists, and there's like, it's not like they sign up and then like the next day they go do it. There's a long waiting period. They do like tests and they do all this stuff. So like these people, don't back out. Like, I think they said like maybe a couple people backed out, and there was a like, I think McVries, I think, was like the first alternate that got chosen.
hmm,
So at least a couple people did, but like, not knowing, he doesn't give a big glimpse into what their society is, but it seems like everybody still has jobs and
yeah,
still does everything else. But there's, these people are still willing to think that they have a chance, um, to get like this great prize. And like they even hint about it. Like, I don't know if you, so there's the movie, and he also has the other Richard Bachman thing, The Running Man.
oh yeah, yeah,
Um, so I mean, I know The Running Man, the movie, is way different than the his book, but like, is I see a few little comparisons between this and the book, where like, remember in the movie, like
I've
the
actually
people who,
I've never seen the movie or
you
read
never
the
seen
book.
it.
No.
Well, it's like, in this case, it's if you're on death row, they, you
Yeah.
get a chance to escape from, and these people hunt you down. If you escape, you get everything your heart desires, plus, your freedom and everything. Then it turns out that like, they're people aren't really winning. They're like, everybody loses.
Yeah.
And this is, in this case, that's how it is. Like, even whoever is the last one standing, you're not really winning. Like,
Right.
and then, in this case, the same thing. So, I mean, I think that that's the kind of cool stuff that, you know, why they actually choose to do what they do, knowing that, you know, nobody's winning, and they have to realize that. And they do, I think, in essence, realize that in the back of their minds. They realize that no one's winning this. Like,
Yeah.
even if you win, you lose.
So the aspect that you talked about, the crowd, I didn't really think about. So the mob mentality, towards the end of the book, he likens the crowd like to, just like one ambiguous face, over and over again. Like the crowd, which is really a mass of people, is treated as if it's one character in the book, which is very similar to the way you're talking about the groupthink mob mentality, and how they all go along with it and kind of praise this act like it's a sporting event, or like the Roman Colosseums, like where people would watch Christians get eaten by lions and
exactly.
And like it just that whole individually that wouldn't be entertainment, but in this setting is how it lends itself to that. And it seems bizarre. It seems so outrageous. Like it's not even possible. I would never want to watch this on television. I wouldn't it seems like this would be something that society would not accept. But like I just said with the Romans, like there is historical context to it that humans in some cases do this.
And then there's also the thing where, like with Garrity's dad, that he, I forgot, what did they call it when they like these people just the military or the government would come in and just basically kind of like the SS did and the Nazis, they would just come and take you if you talked out against. Trying
to think of what they called it. It's like he got bagged, or I can't remember what.
It was something like that. I'm trying to see. I've got it.
Yeah, they definitely like hint at like an authoritarian regime of sorts.
Right, and I think that has a lot to do with it too. Like maybe at first it was maybe more looked down upon, but especially as time has gone on, like not to talk down about it, and it's obviously I feel like the government is listening.
Well, now did Garrity's dad specifically talk bad about the walk or other aspects? Because Garrity says he couldn't. He says that he couldn't keep his political opinions to himself or something like that.
Right. And I think that had to do with the government in general and the authoritarian aspect of it, and he said his dad took him to the walk once, and it was not. It was kind of the opposite of.
It was kind of to show him.
Thing. It was to show him like this is not normal. This is not how things should be, and he got I think he was. What would he say? He got prone to drinking and running his mouth and stuff like that, and then it finally caught up to him.
Another thing that you mentioned in your. So like why did they choose? So there's I kept thinking about like likening the walk to joining the military, but it kind of breaks down though. I don't think that's a good comparison all the way through, but like whenever you're talking about like why did they choose? I mean, if they have the option to back out, who would actually let their kid like go do this? Like, because not only are the kids making the choice, but like these parents are like okay with it. Like, they're packing them with cookies and sending them off to this walk. Like I thought of this book. I read it after having seen things like The Hunger Games and what's the movie with the train? Snowpiercer. Like
Snowpiercer, yeah.
Like a lot of these movies that kind of try to tell a similar story about like, different tiers of society and how like there's these disparate people that like out of desperation will put themselves or their children in harm's way to, just for the small chance that they can better their life. But this story is not that. I likened it to that because it involves kids and it involves killing kids, and it all has to do with this like authoritarian government. I kind of thought this was going down that road, so that's why I made that comparison. But the difference is like these were not, at least for the most part, these characters were not characters that were in some like desperate, poor, villages where they were just trying to get water or something. You know what I mean? Like,
right, exactly.
I mean, these kids showed up with nice clothes. They had packed lunches in little bags. I mean, like it was like it showed affluence, in a way. And so I think that these growing up in this culture, in this world, you probably idealize the walkers. I mean, like you said, there's streets named after the first one. I mean, like, and they grow up thinking that could be me one day. I could be one of them, and I'll be the one that makes it to the end. I'll be the one that succeeds. And so I think that they basically indoctrinate themselves into believing that so much that whenever it comes their time that they're chosen, they see it as, oh, this is my opportunity. Like I won the lottery of being chosen, and I've already spent my entire life thinking that if it were me, I would make it. And so, and so they buy into it. And the parents are probably doing a similar thing, like they're looking at their kids from the time they're literally walking, from the time that they take their first steps, and they think, we think like, oh, he's going to grow up and be an astronaut or a doctor. That's what we think about our kids. And they're thinking, I bet if he were to get chosen, he could make the long walk. I bet he could do it. Like so they're indoctrinating themselves over the course of this long period of time.
It's, like you were saying, they don't come from, there was maybe one or two mentions of people who were like, didn't really have much, but like for the most part, they were just, your normal run of the mill kids. And then like, once they started walking, then it hit home. Like, they were like, what am I doing? And then the McVries, he was the one that was always, agitating everybody, and especially with Garrity, like, why are you here? And like, what's the real reason? And, like, why would you, do this or do that? And like Garrity realized that he didn't really have an answer for it. The only one that really felt like he was there for, the real reason was, what was it? It was his,
I don't remember any of their names.
From Texas.
That's the guy I was thinking of, but I don't remember any of their names.
Yeah, he was, he had the new wife and like, had a baby on the way, and he was the odds-on favorite from Vegas apparently to win, and like then he gets obviously sick and stuff, but like again, I think it was more of the fame aspect, and like Garrity was saying, like when he got chosen, like the city threw like parties and festivals, and like he made speeches, and like he was like this front and center. He got to be like this grand person, and and then he wanted to get back at his girlfriend, hey, I'm this, look at me, I'm a walker, I'm not some loser guy anymore, and kind of thing. And and of course they're all stupid kids. Yeah. And so they don't know any better.
They think they're invincible at that age.
They think they're invincible.
So let me give you my take on what I think the meaning behind the walk is. All right. And then I want to talk about practically how I felt about like not necessarily like the symbolism, but like practically this world, how I felt about it. But all right. So symbolism. All right. So, you and I both worked retail together for many years, and everything for me, almost everything when I'm watching a TV show or reading a book or something, I'm always comparing it to capitalism.
Right.
And so here was my take. I'm not saying that this is the right take on the book. I have no idea. I have a tendency to draw this comparison in almost everything. So take everything I'm saying with a mountain of salt. But to me, the walk is this. It's a symbolism for not necessarily a capitalist society or socialist society, but a society in general. All of these people are willing to participate in it, even though no one really has to. They just have this unspoken rule and this unspoken, guide and urge to participate in these rules and in this program. And there is a government force. There is like a force that is enforcing its existence. And much like capitalism, there is winners and there's losers. And not only is there winners and losers, but in order for there to be literally 1% winner, there has to be 99% losers. And everyone participating in this system is going along with it because they have convinced themselves that there is the smallest chance, that there is the slimmest, that there is a chance that they will be the main character and that they will be able to be part of that 1%. And that's why they are willing to sacrifice and participate in it. And to me, that's the whole purpose of the book is the whole time I'm reading it, I'm thinking, why is anyone doing this? Why is anyone participating in this? Whenever there's way more people than there are soldiers. And at any point,
right.
Why is anyone participating in this process at all? And it's just because they believe there's a chance they could be the winner, but there's way more likelihood that they won't be.
Right.
But because they have that belief, they'll always advocate for the power to be in the 1% because they believe that one day they will be the 1%, even though it's very unlikely. So that's my socialist take on on the long walk.
and I can definitely see that because there's so you have to take this also. Let's see, this was written. When did he write this? So he published it in 1979.
Right, but interesting fact, he says that it's his first book. This is the first book Stephen King ever wrote.
Right, but it wasn't the first that he published.
Right, it wasn't the first that he published, yeah, and it was originally published under Richard Bachman.
Right.
Yeah.
But so you can see kind of a lot of the jobs that they were talking about, working in a bed sheet factory or Garrity's girlfriend, or no, it was McVreeze's girlfriend that they moved to the city, and then she lived with some girlfriends, and he worked in the he worked the really crappy part, and she was down there doing the little sewing, and
she was sewing buttons on pajamas.
Yeah, it made me think of
textile industry,
and the old school it felt like the 50s, not 79, and it felt like I kind of got the kind of socialist communist thing of everyone had their place in their jobs, and in that aspect, but then you had the big corporations or in the military that were more the capitalistic side, where it was all about they were making, all these companies were trying to make money, and then the major was this Christ-like character that was he didn't really do anything. He just rode around and waved, and he had his dark aviator glasses on, and even in the getting toward the end when there was not a whole lot of kids left, when he would pull up, even Garrity said he caught himself like cheering and clapping for him. It's like,
Yeah.
that kind of represented like, again, that represented like what the grand prize, like the great money, the great everything. And then I like the Stebbins character. He starts off as the quiet kid in the back and kind of cocky and all that stuff, and just really weird. But then it turns out that the reason he's doing the walk is because the major is his father, but the major won't acknowledge him or anything else. And like he says, my prize will be that he acknowledges me and makes me family.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. And then
yeah, that was the wildest part of the book.
And like all the characters are like, this isn't a very big book. But King does a great job of like making you feel for even the characters that aren't mentioned a whole lot. Like I said, the kid whose mom is trying to break through and like all that. Like when he walks off and almost gets to the woods, you're like, and then he gets killed. Like it,
Mm-hmm.
you feel for that. You feel that even though there's not a whole lot.
And well, I guess you don't know. So I was going to say, and he's going to die because that 99 of them are going to die, but not necessarily.
Right.
The story could have changed. I mean, like something could have happened. There could have been an earthquake and they all separated. I mean, like there could have been some change to the plot. Like we only know, like he sets up those rules in the beginning, and at no point does they ever break those rules, but he could have. And I was thinking Garrity might not. I thought after so many chapters and he hadn't bought his ticket yet, then I knew that it was probably he was gonna make it to the end. But the first couple of chapters, I was thinking like I wouldn't doubt it if he buys his ticket and then we follow another character for the rest of the walk, or maybe
Right.
or the book it's broken up into 3 parts. Maybe each part is a different walker, because they buy their ticket at the end of the part. Like and for that reason, you are kind of on pins and needles with Garrity because I wasn't sure that he was going to be the winner.
Right. The another interesting thing is the even though they're in this situation, it's with Garrity and McVrees, and then to an extent Stebbins later on, but like mainly between them two, the ultimate goal is to be the last one standing, but human nature, they save each other. Like,
yeah.
There's, Garrity like gets down on himself and like, McVrees comes and saves him. And then like later on, like, when McVrees wants to give up, then Garrity steps in, like, and especially like that toward the end, when it's really getting down to the thing, and they're still, willing to step in and save each other. I think that's kind of their own group mentality, is that,
mm-hmm.
They realize that, these aren't just numbers or whatever. These are actual people that, have lives and who have loved ones, and who, they don't want to see someone die, other than the one kid, what was his name? Barkovich,
mm-hmm.
the one that's just the total dick to everybody.
Yeah.
They all wanted to see him dead, but and then when what's his name? Scram, that was the guy's name. With the wife and stuff, when they all make a pact that, hey, whoever wins, we're gonna take care of Scram's wife and kid, and even Barkovich agrees to that. And that kind of just shows you, like, there's still feelings, and there's still some hope in all this.
Yeah.
And you
And
know,
there's a lot of introspective about what death is
yes,
and what I think it's more about what death is, but there's also like the concept of like what life is and what is the purpose. Like um in this situation, their only goal is just to walk a little further. I mean, there's even Garrity is not even sure that he's going to make it to the end, but he wants to make it as far as he can before he dies. And they have goals like we made it 20 miles before the first, like they have all these like milestones that they know about the previous walks,
right.
and they're trying to meet those, like unlocking those achievements, so to speak. But why does any of it matter? Like if they're going to die before the end of this walk, then why, like what does knowing that they made that achievement matter in the long run? And the long run is just the next couple of days, however long they can walk, you know? And so that was one of the things that got me about the book, is just like the constant, like, like you just know that because you signed up for this, you're more than likely going to die in the next couple of days. And just what do you do with that? Like while walking.
There's a I was just reading on the Wikipedia of this. It says he tells Garrity tells McVries how he felt a compulsion to join the walk, and that his mother was blinded by the thought of financial security. McVries reveals that he joined the walk against the wishes of his family, and that Abraham tells Garrity that he didn't want to withdraw after being accepted due to the amusement it provided his town. So, like, there's a few things,
Yeah.
there. And like, there's the part where McVries is getting on to Garrity and, accusing him of like, what it says he doubts his sexuality and his masculinity. And he, McVries hints that Garrity is, maybe attracted to him. And then that causes Garrity to get mad, and he goes, takes it out on Barkovich.
Yeah.
So it's like, this ending vicious cycle of like, why are we here? And like Garrity wants to get to the city to be able to see his girlfriend, and like, he realizes that, kind of then that there's a lot of stuff he's going to miss out on. Like, he's one of the few, it seems like, in that age group that hadn't had sex yet.
Yeah.
He hasn't gotten to experience a lot of things, and like, and he's so caught up with her that, like, even it says like he kind of ignores his mother when he finally gets there, and it's I don't know, maybe like what he knows his mother, he knows like all, that's what's familiar to him, but what could be with his girl is what's driving him forward. And then once he walks past her, I think it hits home that, that's it. There's nothing else. That's probably the last time I'm going to see them.
Yeah.
And maybe I should have said more to my mother, kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, I just, as it goes along, it just, I think they see the bleakness of the lives that they're losing. And again, the practicality of this thing too is like how, like, at some point the mentality switches from like walking for this prize to walking to not die.
Oh yeah.
Like, like they just somehow continue going despite everything because they realize that, hey, I really don't want to die. And that's pretty, the one thing I've always had a question of this story, like the 4 mile an hour thing, like it's slow, but it's also like not that slow.
Yeah.
And like, I think when it finally ends, they'd been walking for 5 days.
Yeah. Something like
Some
that.
change.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking even get, we haven't really said it, but Garrity winds up the last one.
Mm-hmm.
But like he he doesn't have shoes. He doesn't have he doesn't know what he's doing. Essentially his mind is kind of switched off. Like, they come back to each other every now and then. Like at the end, they get Garrity to tell a story to keep their minds off things. But a lot of the end part is like self introspection and zombies. But somehow they still manage to keep that 4 mile an hour.
Yeah.
Hey, and
yeah, but I mean, if they didn't, they would have bought the ticket. Like it's
right.
like
It's like their body knows that. And like I often wonder if that's true, because like if you just said, "Hey, I want you to start walking now. You got to maintain 4 miles an hour. Let's see how far you go." Like none of these people would have made it 20, 30 miles. But when you put that, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to die. Would the body actually react that way? Like, is that physically possible to walk 5 straight days?
Yeah, I don't know. So that is something that you constantly think of reading the book, is how far could I walk if I were in this situation? How would I do this? And yeah, I mean, if someone told me to walk as far as I can, I have no idea how far I could walk. But if someone said walk as far as you can, and when you stop, I'll kill you, I'd walk a whole lot farther. I know that.
Exactly.
But yeah,
now definitely not. But when I was a teenager, I probably could have. I probably could have walked from where I lived to Anderson, and maybe maintain that 4 mile an hour pace. But I can't imagine going much further than that. Like, you figure a marathon is 26 miles. Could I have walked 26 miles and maintain a 4 mile an hour, pace? I don't know if I could do that. Now, again, if someone was following me with a gun,
yeah,
it's going to make a difference. But like that's just really interesting to me. Like what the stay alive mentality would really do. Like they talk about them even sleeping while they're walking, but yet somehow still maintaining that pace.
Yeah.
And like I want to say, man, that's stupid. That would never happen. But then you go, well, that could happen.
I don't think you could sleep, but I think you could
just check out.
You could, yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, they walked from Maine and they made it into Massachusetts.
So,
and they were getting toward Boston, and you're like, wow, that's
So let me tell you what reading the book was like for me, and why it was a blessing and a curse. I think it suits the theme of the book so well, because to me, reading the book was like going on a long walk. Like,
right.
The reading every chapter of the book feels like the last chapter, because it's literally just about the main character walking, and he's talking to other people that are just walking, and they talk about how much they wish they had sex more, and then someone starts to slow down, and then they start talking about what does life mean and what they think it'll be like whenever they finally get their ticket. And then that person that started to slow down finally stops and gets shot and killed. And then you go on to the next chapter, which does the exact same thing again. It's like that for like 12 chapters before it changes
Right.
up a little bit. And so for me, I listened to the first couple chapters thinking like, well, when's this going to change? When's this going to turn into something else? But then I kind of realized that like it could be done that way on purpose. It could be that reading the book, you're kind of putting yourself through a similar sort of, mindset. Because I felt like I was like, all right, I got to get through this book. I just got to keep reading.
Right.
Like I'm reading at a 4-mile-an-hour pace.
It's a long read.
Yeah, and but it's not that I disliked the story. I think that so I've not read the short story version of this, but I wonder if I would have liked the short story version a lot more, because I'm sure I felt like we didn't need half the chapters that was in the book, because it was really all just the same chapter over and over again.
Sure.
But in any other book, I would say that is a huge disadvantage and mark against the book, while I feel like it fits the theme of this book,
Yeah.
And I feel like it's
agree with
very
that.
Stephen King to make a decision like that. This is the first book he ever wrote. He didn't feel like it was good enough to, this was not the first book he published. And I don't know that it was intentional or not, but I could see a Stephen King making that type of decision that, I'm going to write this book in such a way that it feels like you're going through this long walk with the characters. I could see that being his intention. And I also think that now that I've done it, I'm glad that I've read the full version. I think having done it, I like on the other side of it, I like the experience versus having read this as a short story. As a short story, I imagine it would have been like, that was a really neat story. I really liked that a lot, but it wouldn't have been the same as reading the whole thing.
Right. So I was just reading here. It says that he wrote it in 1966 to 67 during his freshman year at the University of Maine. And then it was also listed, the American Library Association listed it as one of the 100 best books for teenage readers published between 1966 and 2000. And I do think it's a good character. Like I said, I think it's a really good character study that young kids can, like, it's not Moby Dick and all those that, it's a, even though it's older, it's like a newer, hipper kind of book that kids would get into. And so in that aspect, that's another thing. When I first read it, I was a lot younger, and it probably stuck with me more because of that. Now I don't know if reading it now would it have the same impact. I don't know. Again, I do agree that a lot of those first few chapters are like, I don't know if he's doing that like as a purpose to say, like, you don't really know what to expect at first once the walk starts.
Yeah.
Even though he kind of spells it out for you, they don't really. Another thing he doesn't really do is he doesn't explain, like at the very beginning, okay, here's the rules. You kind of learn those rules as you kind of go along with the story. And then, like, you get the first kid, that gets shot or whatever. And then, it keeps going. And I think it's more of, the first one is kind of like an introduction to like what this is really like. And then it's like, not like old hat, but like even the kids walking, like, they'll just hear a shot and they'll be like, oh, okay. There's another one. Okay, here's another one. As long as it's not in, their core group, it's just a shot in the dark, essentially, because, a lot of the deaths take place during the night when, the kid people are getting more tired and things like that.
I think if I was in this world, I would be. I mean, if I signed up for this and I was doing the long, which is something I would never do, but if I did and I was in this situation, I would be cheering every time I heard a gunshot because it means I'd get to the end faster. And I would just like I would not, Garrity's saving other characters, he's chit chatting with other crew. I would literally put in earbuds and I would just focus on walking. I would not
you'd be
think
the
about a single
guy.
yeah, I'd be more of the Stebbins guy. I would just walk and just ignore everything else around me, just focus on walking. Um and I would just hope that it would end as soon as possible. But I would never sign up for this absurd thing.
Yeah, me neither. So now the end. So it's kind of I'll say it's vague, but it's not necessarily a cut and dry ending. So like basically you get down to McVree's, Garrity, and Stebbins as the last people, and McVree's finally has enough, and he gets his ticket, and then it's just Stebbins and Garrity, and Garrity kind of takes it as Stebbins was kind of his after he lost his girlfriend for motivation. Stebbins, even from the beginning though, he said he wanted to walk down Stebbins, but even more so after that, and then like he thought Stebbins was invincible. He was like, there's no way that I'll ever beat this guy. And at the very end, he's going up to tell Stebbins, I can't do it anymore. You've won essentially. And then he realizes that Stebbins is out of it. And and then Stebbins gets his tickets, which leaves Garrity as the last one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the crowd's going crazy, but he doesn't hear it, he doesn't see it. Like it tells like the major comes up to him, and he's trying to hey, you've done it and everything, and Garrity doesn't even see that. He sees this figure, this dark figure,
yeah,
who he believes to be another walker, and that and he's basically saying that there's still so far to walk, it's not done. And the way what I took about the dark figure was the Grim Reaper was what I took for that. And then Garrity was walking to his death. Like, again, there's no winners. He won, but he ultimately lost because I get his body just gives out, and I'm sure that even in the slim chance that he would live, he's probably insane. Like,
yeah,
there's no coming back from what he experienced.
Right. That's what I saw the dark figure as, is like that. It's the shadow that will always follow him from like forever. Yeah.
Whether or not he's dying right there or he lives, 10 years or whatever, Garrity is dead in one way or the other. And like, I mean, it was just a break. Yeah. I mean, he broke from reality. And who knows, he could have kept walking and, not known it, but that's another thing. Like I said before, I like this story because it doesn't answer everything for you. It's like, okay,
yeah,
here's this imagery. You take from what you think. You make the decision what happens with Garrity or whatever, and like everyone can have their own, ending. Other than that, there's no happy ending. And one of the things I like about King and a lot of his stories is again, they're not always happy, and the good guys don't always win. Like sometimes the bad guys, the ultimate victor, and so on. And I feel like this is that, like,
Yeah, I agree.
Nobody won. Not even like the crowd, because you could tell. Even I think they're saying like at the end the crowd is just like doesn't know what to think either. They're all going crazy because he's won, but he walks past the major, and the major's like calling out to him, and everybody's kind of like looking at him like, what's going on here?
Yeah, they set that up early on too. It's not in the first chapter, but in like the first 5 chapters, somewhere on, someone talks about how the winner is like left in shambles afterwards, and you're not really, even if you win the race, you still lost.
Right.
So it's a theme that they set up early that pays off at the end. No, I agree with that. I think to me the last chapters are the best part of the book.
Yes.
It's when everything pays off in that. And I really liked it, and discussing it with you makes me like it more. But I'll probably never read it again.
Right.
I would read the short version of it just to get the highlight. And I wonder how it's different. I wonder what pieces they I wonder how they chose to put that together.
Yeah, I feel like I did read the condensed version of this before, but I couldn't tell you. Here's a couple interesting things on this on the Wikipedia page. Apparently in 1988, George Romero was approached to direct a film adaptation.
Oh, that'd have been cool. Yeah.
But it never happened.
Yeah.
And then in 2007, Frank Darabont secured the rights to the film adaptation and said he would get to it one day. And he planned to make it low budget, weird, existential, and very self-contained.
Huh.
But he never did it. And then in April 2018, it was announced that New Line Cinema was going to develop an adaptation because Darabont's rights has lapsed.
I would have liked to seen that Romero version.
Right.
That would have been interesting.
It even says,
you know who would do well. I wonder if somebody, have you ever seen the movie Moon?
Yes.
That's I can't remember the director's name.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who that was too.
It's Duncan Jones.
Duncan Jones, that's right.
Yeah, I wonder how someone like Duncan Jones, who makes these movies with these like 1 or 2 characters, but figures out how to build like a real like huge story out of it. I wonder how he would do on a story like that. The only thing is though, is he does like a lot of sci-fi, like cerebral, like we're gonna play with reality kind of stuff, and but you could do that in this book because the moments that Garrity kind of falls inside of himself, and you could live out all that stuff. Yeah, he probably would make a wild movie.
Yeah, I mean this. I mean, I would see this being it's not going to be some big to do Stephen King movie, but it would be a really cool like indie film like that. Yes. And I wouldn't mind, Frank Darabont. I like Frank Darabont. Obviously, Walking Dead, most people know him for that as far as
and
TV.
He's a really good second to George Romero too. Yeah.
But he and King have done several things together. Like Frank Darabont is the guy who did Shawshank Redemption.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
He did I believe he did The Green Mile 2, and then he did The Mist.
I didn't know any of that.
So like they had several collaborations, and like those are probably 3 of my favorite adaptations as far as King's works goes, because King's not always the easiest to adapt to movies.
And he's been done wrong a few times. Yeah,
he's been done wrong a few times, and most of his works are like very like there's a lot of character introspection and stuff like that. It's hard to kind of
but see, that's where I think Duncan Jones would do a good job. But we're getting off into the weeds here. We're right at an hour, and I think this was a good show. And I'm glad that you picked the book. I never would have picked this book to read on my own, so I'm glad that you did and got me to read it. And next week maybe we'll be ready to do. I'm way far behind compared to you on Oathbringer.
Right.
I'm literally like a fifth as far through the book as you are. You're done now, right? You finished it.
I finished it yesterday.
Oh man, I'm so far behind. But I'll go as fast as I can, and then maybe we'll be able to get together. We might have to do like a news episode next week or something where we just talk about things that are coming out.
Tuesday I've got surgery.
Oh man, is that already? Oh man.
Yeah, that's this Tuesday. So I'll probably need at least a week. So maybe we can get.
Yeah, but you're gonna have surgery, and then you're gonna lay up and listen to like so many books. You're gonna be so far ahead of me.
I was thinking about we still have to do the next book for the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
So and then you still got Oathbringer for. So I've got several credits on Audible. So I got Stephen King's new book, Fairy Tale, on Audible, and I started
it. Yeah, Becca.
I started it yesterday.
Becca's reading it too, and she's way further than me. I quit listening to it because I was listening to The Long Walk while reading physically Fairy Tale.
Right.
But then whenever you got so far ahead of me, whenever you started Oathbringer back, because we both took a break from it. When you started it back, I put down Fairy Tale to pick up Oathbringer again so you wouldn't jump way ahead of me, but then you read 3 parts that I hadn't read yet. Becca kept reading Fairy Tale, and she's pretty far into it now. She really likes it. She said she was crying the other day listening to it because it has a lot to do with a dog. That's like, me and Becca's, that's our soft spot.
Right. Yeah, I've kind of gotten to I think I'm in like the first part where the kid starts taking care of the dog.
Yeah. I haven't gotten that far yet.
So yeah, animals do, same thing. It gets me in the heartstrings.
The Long Walk with Puppies. Couldn't have made it.
Gosh.
Couldn't have read it.
Couldn't have read it. That would have never made it anywhere.
Yeah, I wouldn't have made it all the way through. All right. Well, thanks for listening, folks. We'll see you next episode. Peace.
Peace out.